Okay, so a wealthy family called the Ushiramiya family meets up every year on an island they own called Rokanjima. Kinzo, the patriarch, is dying, so the family has to figure out where his fortune will end up after he kicks it. Kraus, the eldest son, and Natsuhi, his wife, run the main house of the island, slowly preparing it to be a resort for rich people. Kraus is an ass, Natsuhi deserves better. They tried for years for a child, failing multiple times until a miracle baby was conceived. This child, Jessica, hates living on the island and has sweet feelings for one of the house servants, Kanon. Ava, the second child and eldest daughter, hates that Kraus is in charge and bore a son, George, to try and swipe the future family head's seat from his daughter because the family is misogynistic as hell. Her husband, Hideyoshi, is a cool uncle who, unfortunately, feeds Eva's bad behavior. Rudolph, the third child and youngest son, is a womanizing sack of unmentionables. He had an affair during his marriage and married his lover and co-worker Kirie after his wife died. His wife's child, Battler, left the family to live with his mother's parents for 6 years due to grief and anger at his father's infidelity. Rudolph and Kirie's daughter, Angie, is the youngest living member of the entire family. Rosa, the youngest child and daughter, is unmarried with a 9-year-old daughter, Maria. While she's sweet and considerate at face value, she is verbally and physically abusive to her daughter, aggravated by her neurodivergent behaviors. On the other hand, Maria is both an innocent child and a library of knowledge regarding the occult. We play as Battler the year after he reunites with his immediate family due to his grandparents passing away. We meet most of the family at the airport, all shocked to see Battler return to the ranks and have a respectful relationship with his stepmother. Angie, too sick to travel, stays with Kirie's parents and does not join the family. They soon fly to a port where a boat waits for them for Rokanjima. When they arrive, Jessica and the house servant, Chiyo Kumasawa, greet them before they all take a speedboat to Rokanjima. While they sail across the water, Maria points out that a large shrine that once stood tall on an island cliffside is gone. Everyone else shrugs it off. They land and are guided to the mansion by Toshiro Goda, its chef and servant. The family praises the rose garden, briefly meeting Kanon during their brief pause and allowing Maria to point out a wilting bloom among the healthy roses. The children mark the flower for Maria with a candy wrapper before the group is led to the new guest house built by Kraus nearby. After being assigned rooms, the adults leave for the main building, while the children stay in the guest house to relax and catch up with one another. In the mansion, Kinzo laments and whines about the incompetence of his family. He trusts none of them, and finds enough flaws to disavow their rights to claim the family head title. His physician, Dr. Nanjo, tries to calm him down, while his head servant, Genji, serves him absinthe to appease his need for alcohol. Despite this, Kinzo screams to the ceiling, calling for a woman named Beatrice! And wishing to see her smile again. Below Kinzo's screaming madness, the adults gather in the parlor to talk about Kinzo's health and fortune, now determined to define what will happen in the future on paper. Shannon, the last servant of the house, tries to prepare and serve tea to the guests, but Goda sets her up to be ridiculed for doing it late, when it was his fault it was late to begin with. Shannon leaves embarrassed, and Eva picks on Natsuhi for being a seemingly incompetent host. Back at the guest house, the children recollect their childhood over the previous 6 years without Battler. Shannon soon arrives and tells the children that lunch is ready for them. After an awkward meeting between Shannon and Battler, involving non-consensual groping, they go to the main building. Having left Kinzo alone with Dr. Nanjo, Genji walks them through the lobby through the dining hall. Battler stops and stares at a painting that wasn't there 6 years prior of a beautiful blonde woman in a lavish western dress. The group explains that the woman is named Beatrice, and she is someone Kinzo is obsessed with. Maria points out that Beatrice is a witch, while Jessica claims her to be a figment of Kinzo's old age and madness. George ushers them to lunch, not wanting to keep the adults waiting. The family eats lunch, despite Kinzo refusing to join them. After their meal, the adults continue their conversation in the parlor, and the kids go to the beach. In the parlor, the thought of Kinzo's fortune crosses everyone's minds and mouths. All the adults need money right now! So the youngest 3 siblings turn on their older brother with threats of investigating embezzlement. According to the adults, Kinzo's fortune included 10 tons of gold, authenticated by sources as astonishingly pure. It helped Kinzo spread his influence and wealth, so it had become a valuable family asset. As Kraus was the acting head of the family, the other siblings accused him of accessing the gold and using it for his own needs. In exchange for not investigating Kraus, the siblings demand he pays each of them a fraction of that gold's total value. Natsuhi tries to defend her husband, but Eva shoots her down and causes her to leave the room. Kraus fires back with investigations against his younger siblings, and the adults are put at a standstill about the fortune. On the beach, the kids discuss the epitaph riddle near the Beatrice painting, understanding that if they solve it, they could earn a practical fortune of gold that was given to Kinzo by Beatrice. Maria tries to help, using her knowledge of the occult to explain Beatrice's powers, but her older cousins brush her off. Despite this, Maria gives Battler and Jessica cheap scorpion charm bracelets as protection from magic. As it begins to rain, the children make their way back to the mansion. Maria tries to find her rose on the way, but it has vanished entirely from the garden. In an obsessive fit, Maria refuses to leave the garden and begs the others to help. They look around, but no one can seem to find the bloom bloom anywhere. Taking a break from her siblings, Rosa comes outside and asks what is happening. They explain the situation and Rosa tries to help, but as Maria begins to throw a fit, Rosa physically slaps her down and berates her for her childish speech habit and attitude. George leads the other children to the guest house, knowing that Rosa cannot be reasoned with and that they should not interfere with the family spat. Rosa leaves Maria in the garden as the rain begins to pour. Kinzo, staring into the raining sky, affirms that Beatrice is making her move and it is time for a ritual to commence. With the island cut off from the world with the rain and an incoming typhoon, Kinzo tosses his family signet ring out of the window, answering Beatrice's challenge. After a long nap, Rosa awakens to realize what she did to her daughter and runs outside to find her. At the same time, Cannon arrives at the guest house to inform the children that dinner is about to be served. They ask if Maria was okay, but Cannon had not seen her on the way to the guest house, so he assumed that Maria was with them. They panic and rush outside to try and find her. Both parties find Maria still in the rose garden with a white umbrella. Rosa asks if the children gave it to her, but none of them take the credit. Finally, after convincing Maria to stop looking for the rose, Rosa asks her who gave her the umbrella. With a smile stretching from ear to ear, Maria says it was Beatrice. Not wanting to deal with Maria's obsessions, Rosa waves it off, and the group returns to the mansion for dinner. Rosa asks about Maria's umbrella during the meal, but no one will take credit for it. Despite Maria reaffirming that Beatrice gave it to her, Rosa refuses to believe it. Finally, as the dinner ends, Maria brings out an envelope she also received from Beatrice, marked with Kinzo's signet ring wax seal, and reads it aloud. Beatrice issues her resignation as Kinzo's witch and, upon termination, is due to receive everything that belonged to him and his, including the fortune and the island. The only catch, if anyone can solve her epitaph and find her gold, her claim will be forfeit, and the seeker will earn everything instead. The adults freak out and scare the children with their true natures regarding the family fortune. They bombard Maria with questions until she refuses to answer anyone and sleeps in the parlor from exhaustion. Kirie and Battler discuss the idea of a 19th person on the island. Due to the weather, they are cut off from the world, so no one could have entered. As they go back and forth flipping the chessboard around multiple times, Rudolph arrives and claims that he might die that night, frightening his son and wife. He and Kirie leave to join the adults in their deliberations, leaving Battler with the rest of the children. Kraus, knowing the truth about Kinzo's fortune, guides Natsuhi in secret to a room where a heavy gold ingot is displayed on a pedestal. He reveals to her that he found it after it was authenticated, having definite proof that the gold in Kinzo's fortune exists. Distraught at not being told this earlier, Natsuhi leaves and tries to calm down when Jessica approaches her and gives her the bracelet Maria handed her earlier. Natsuhi, despite being a harsh mother to her, is grateful and promises to give Jessica something of hers in return. Having had enough for the night, the children carry the sleeping Maria to the guest house. Despite her daughter being knocked out cold, Rosa asks for forgiveness as the children follow Shannon out of the mansion. They lay Maria in her room before Shannon checks the schedule in the staff room for her evening shift. In the staff room, Genji informs Shannon that she, Kanon, and Genji are assigned to stay in the guest house, while Kumasawa and Goda are in charge of the mansion during the night. This is due to Kraus not trusting the three servants, as they took orders directly from Kinzo and had the family crest on their uniforms, unlike Goda and Kumasawa. Shannon is happy. Kanon refuses to be so. Forgetting something important at the mansion, George rushes out to retrieve it with Shannon as an escort. Using the lie, the pair finally have a moment alone in the garden gazebo, where George makes it clear that he wants to marry her, calling her by her real name, Sayo. Shannon does not know how to reply, so George orders her to take the ring he brought regardless of her choice. When she is ready to tell him, she must put the ring on her chosen finger, making her answer clear. Delighted, Shannon excuses herself to do one last chore in the mansion while George returns to the guest house. Morning rises and it is still heavily raining on Rokonjima. Genji and Kanon go to the mansion to help prepare breakfast. However, Goda is nowhere to be found, and the kitchen has not been warmed for food prep, so they scour the house trying to find him and not delay cooking any further than necessary. Natsuhi, having a rare good night's sleep, recollects wrapping the bracelet Jessica gave her around her doorknob and prepares a thankful gift for her. A knock interrupts her thoughts. She opens the door to Genji, who reports that the phone lines are down and Goda is missing. Knowing she must be diligent, Natsuhi leaves her room and orders Genji to prepare breakfast immediately. However, as she turns to close the door to her room, she finds her door completely splattered with bloody handprints, as if someone was trying to get in. Determining it as a grotesque prank, she tells Genji to have the door cleaned and leaves to join the already waiting Eva and Hideyoshi in the parlor. Kanon rushes in and whispers something to Genji, who then tells Natsuhi that Kraus, Rudolph, Kirie, and Rosa are also missing. Natsuhi, trying to remain the calm host, instructs Genji and Kanon to search the grounds for them in case the missing people stayed up and continued their discussions into the morning. She then leaves to report to Kinzo, with Eva trying to join her, but Natsuhi denies her as she is a house guest. Knowing Natsuhi's predicament, Genji gives her his key to Kinzo's room before she leaves. In the guest house, Maria awakens to find her mother not with her and throws a fit to wake up her cousins. They calm Maria down and theorize that Rosa is with the other adults in the mansion, so they all head over to try and find her and get breakfast. Natsuhi, under extreme pressure to get Kinzo to leave his room and eat breakfast with the family by Eva, enters and finds him awake. He asks her how she got in, and she explains that Genji gave her his key. Kinzo nods and, while denying her request to join the family for breakfast, affirms that he is proud to call her an Ushiramiya. While she can't wear the one-winged eagle on her clothes, she bears it in her heart. Filled with renewed confidence, Natsuhi leaves the room, where Eva tries to intimidate her. Natsuhi brushes her off and returns to the parlor with a displeased Eva in tow. The children and Dr. Nanjo greet Natsuhi as she arrives, having joined Hideyoshi and Genji during her visit to Kinzo. Genji informs Natsuhi that they still haven't found everyone, but Kumasawa has started preparing breakfast. To try and calm everyone down, Natsuhi leaves to go prepare tea. Just then, Kanon rushes into the parlor and informs everyone that something has happened to the storehouse near the Rose Garden. Genji, Eva, and Hideyoshi follow Kanon outside to investigate, finding the front shutter covered by an eerie painted symbol. Pushing the thought aside, they open the shutters and find something worse. Genji rushes back to the house and whispers in Nanjo's ear to follow him, not wanting to alarm the children. They inform Natsuhi of the situation on the way out, causing her to leave with them. George catches them running outside through the window and, out of concern, convinces Battler and Jessica to join him in seeing what is going on. When they arrive, Natsuhi fails to stop them from looking into the storehouse. Inside are multiple dead bodies, faces broken to unrecognizable proportions, with only clothes as identifiers. Jessica and Battler loudly mourn the losses of Kraus, Rudolph, and Kirie, but George tries to remain calm as he asks his father to identify a body in the back of the storehouse. Hideyoshi confirms it to be Shannon with a ring on her ring finger, giving him her answer in death. The children return to the house unsure how to inform Maria of her mother's demise. The adults lock up the storehouse and agree to wait for law enforcement after the typhoon has run its course. Everyone gathers in the parlor, recuperating from the trauma, while Maria watches TV in ignorance. Kumasawa rushes in and informs everyone that the dining hall is covered in blood. They go and confirm it, placing it as the scene where everyone in the storehouse was killed before deciding to eat breakfast in the parlor instead. Natsuhi and Eva check on Kinzo, while Genji confirms that even the emergency lines are down. The family is genuinely stuck until after the storm for any communication with the outside world. Putting two and two together from how everyone is acting, Maria asks them how many people were killed in the calmest voice possible. When Jessica tells her 6, Natsuhi and Eva return to report that Kinzo is missing as well. Everyone sits down to eat breakfast before Natsuhi and the servants secure the house and look for Kinzo. With the host gone, Eva confides in Battler and revives the 19th person discussion Kirie had with him that previous night. She denies the 19th person, while Battler can barely agree. All of the bodies, while brutally murdered, had to have been dragged to the storehouse in the rain and locked in with a key only the servants had access to. Also, there was a possibility that multiple people were working together. Still, to paint a symbol on the storehouse as a big "dead bodies here" marker, it made no sense for any of the servants to be the culprit, and there was more incentive for the adults to kill off the rest of the family for the fortune they were bound to lose to Beatrice. Unable to fully agree, the conversation ends. Hideyoshi and Nanjo recreate the magic circle on paper, trying to determine its purpose, when Maria shifts into a creepy persona and educates everyone about it being a magic circle of the sun, a spell meant to break through obligatory or destined bonds and ensure freedom. The dead bodies were used as a sacrifice for the spell, as it was Beatrice who killed them. As the group ponders, fearing this new information, Natsuhi returns with a Winchester M1894 sawed-off shotgun, a firearm from Kinzo's collection for protection. The servants lament the loss of Shannon and Goda, but Battler questions them about Beatrice. They confirm her existence and witch title, with Maria claiming that Battler's wavelength is mismatched, so he can't see her standing in the room with them. In the parlor, Eva accuses Natsuhi and the servants of the murders, claiming that Natsuhi helped Kinzo escape when she first reported to him. Tired of Eva's attitude, Natsuhi points her gun at her stepsister and demands her to stop, but Eva goads her to pull the trigger and proves she is the murderer with a stomach to kill another human being. Battler has to step in to stop her rambling, pointing at Eva as having the most to gain. Eva, defeated by her orphan nephew, retreats to her room with her husband. As dinner rolls around, Kanon and Genji try to inform Ada and Hideyoshi of such, but they don't enter the door. Genji unlocks it with his master key but finds a chain locking it from the inside and an unopened letter under the door. Kanon runs out to get the bolt cutters from the storehouse, and Genji informs Nanjo of what is happening. Kanon, followed by Kumasawa for safety, returns to the door to see another symbol painted on the door before opening it. He discovers Eva and Hideyoshi dead with daggers in their foreheads, with Eva on the far bed and Hideyoshi in the bathroom mid-shower. Genji, Nanzo, and Natsuhi arrive to investigate, followed by the children who refuse to be left in the dark. George vows with Battler to find Beatrice and stop her at any cost in revenge for losing his parents. A foul stench fills the hallway as the survivors walk back to the parlor. Thinking she had left the stove on, Kumasawa goes to the kitchen with Kanon behind her. The three three eldest children attempt to solve how the couple was murdered in a locked room to no avail, but Maria simply asks if they are satisfied. Knowing Battler did not want to suspect anyone in the family, she explains that only a witch could have killed them, for the magic circle on their door was the first magic circle of the moon. You can open any door, no matter what, while being smug about it. Meanwhile, as Kanon and Kumasawa approach the kitchen, they find the source of the smell to be the boiler room. After chasing something down into it and giving an epic monologue, Kanon gets stabbed in the chest with a dagger by a group of butterflies. As Kumasawa screams finding Kanon's body, the other survivors rush in. They take Kanon out of the boiler room to attempt and revive him, but not before seeing the source of the smell, Kinzo's burning body. Kanon doesn't make it, and the remaining group takes shelter in Kinzo's study. They open the letter left in Ava's room, reading "Praise my name" from it before the servants recount the truth about Beatrice. Beatrice was a real woman, and was someone Kinzo genuinely loved and would have given his life for despite being married to another woman. As the group observes a miniature painting of Beatrice, Battler realizes the deaths revolve around the lines of Beatrice's riddle, each detailing what sacrifices had to be made to summon her forth and bring everyone to a place called the Golden Land. As Natsuhi, Jessica, George, and Battler look over the epitaph, Maria points to another letter on the table, causing Natsuhi to line up Genji, Nanjo, Kumasawa, and Maria against the far wall at gunpoint. They were the only ones not looking at the epitaph, so the letter had to have come from one of them. No one confesses, so Natsuhi forces them out of the room, locking the door behind them. Battler goes through Kinzo's study, trying to understand more of the occult, as George, Jessica, and Natsuhi second-guess forcing the servants and Maria out. Battler finds a magic circle in the new letter, and matches it to one in Kinzo's books, labeled as the third magic circle of Mars. It was meant to bring discord and division in a group, and it worked. Suddenly, the phone rings despite the lines being out. Natsuhi answers and hears Maria singing, leading the group to quickly leave and rush to the parlor. There, they find Nanjo, Genji, and Kumasawa dead, with Maria facing a wall singing a children's song about a butterfly. Battler, George, and Jessica question Maria, while Natsuhi faces off with a flock of butterflies in the main lobby. The children rush to Natsuhi, only to see her be shot in the head somehow by the darkness. Battler picks up the gun and aims at the dark, and the night ends. An epilogue reads how all of the remaining children were found grotesquely slaughtered, and none were left alive when the rain cleared. The story of the Rokenjima mass murders spread far and wide, with many theories of how an entire family of 18 people died on one island. But when a bottle rolls up to the mainland beach, signed by Maria, word morphs into something beyond reasoning. In the Golden Land, the children laugh in remembrance of the event, but Battler calls them out. As they praise Beatrice, Battler denies her existence, causing said witch to make herself known at last. She laughs and punishes the other children for Battler's defiance, challenging him to disprove the existence of magic. He agrees, and the game truly begins. Observing the battle is Lady Berncastel, a witch who finds herself bored and in need of cheap tea and entertainment. She affirms to aid Battler, knowing that he is a pawn in a much bigger game.